Hi guys, Big Monday here, and today I want to do a video on how to counter Omni Knight. Now, this guy doesn't sound massively dangerous, but he currently has the highest win rate. Shut up, phone. What? Okay, my phone's randomly talking to me, but okay. He has the highest win rate on Dota Buff at the minute at 60.58%. He's quite a long way ahead of Necrophos at 58.8%. And the thing is, his pick rate isn't amazing, but his win rate is. And the reason his pick rate is so amazingly good is there isn't any... With items, there isn't really a way to hard counter this hero. There are, of course, heroes that he does better against and heroes that he struggles against, and usually I leave them out of these countering videos because I want to mainly focus on how we can counter him when we get into a game, because anybody can check the stats on Dota Buff. But he's not really a natural one to counter. This is why he has such a high win rate, is that there's no obvious way to deal with him. And there are a few items we can build which help us deal with an Omni Knight, but the most important way you can deal with an Omni Knight is to just play around his abilities. Now, what do I mean by that? So, he is such a problem because his Guardian Angel and Repel mean that he's pretty much immune to everything. There are a few exceptions.
Watch over us.
Basically, what you need is a pure damage ability that is not targeted and pierces spell immunity. So, for example, the Sunray, it's pure, but it doesn't pierce spell immunity. Basically, because Repel gives you 100% resistance to magic damage, but not pure damage. The Guardian Angel gives you immunity from physical damage, so you can still be damaged by pure damage, but because Repel gives you spell immunity, the pure spell you cast with it has still got to pierce spell immunity, and there aren't many things in the game that will pierce spell immunity and, you know, fit all that criteria. So basically, we have to consider that Omni Knight and his team are immortal for the duration of his ult. You can't touch them. I mean, this guy is a real pain in the ass. Because a good Omni Knight will hold the Guardian Angel until you commit to a fight. And that's kind of where the secret to defeating Omni Knight comes in. You need to bait out the Guardian Angel. You need a way to control fights in such a way as he thinks you're committing to the fight, and then you leave. Because basically there is 10 seconds where you're not going to be able to kill anybody of value in his team. Now, yeah, he can only cast Repel on one target, but there's a good chance that his team, a couple of members of his team are going to get BKBs anyway. Omni Knight himself is usually tanky as hell, so he's not going to waste it on himself. So you've got to assume at least 3 members of the enemy team are totally magic immune for 10 seconds and physical immune. So basically there's no way you're going to damage him, so you have to play around it. Now, high mobility heroes who have a way in and out are a good way to deal with an Omni Knight like this. Puck is a good example because you can initiate on him, or you can pretend to initiate on him and then leave. Phoenix isn't a bad example because often during an Icarus dive, enemies will assume you're initiating. So what you can do is you can cast Fire Spirits. You can throw out the Fire Spirits, dive in, return to your safe location, and with a bit of luck, he will pop his ult, and that gives you 150 seconds to then push in, force a fight while his ult is down. And in most pub games, you will, when you start to get good and really think about working with your team, you will look at what's up on my team, what spells are available on my team. With an Omni Knight, it is much more important that you look at what spells are available on the enemy team, and that's much more difficult. But basically all you need to do is, anytime Guardian Angel is used, you then have 2 minutes where you can fight him effectively, and you can fight his team effectively. So that's what you need to make a point to look out for. Anytime Guardian Angel is used, you have 2 minutes to fight his team effectively. Now, there are a couple of items we can buy to help manage a fight. Now, any fight against an Omni Knight is not going to be fast. Usually what will happen is a fight will start, he'll tend to make his team immune, and the fight will just drag on so long before you can do any damage to them, but that by the time you can damage them, they're starting to mop you up. So if we assume that a fight breaks out and we haven't managed to bait out the ult, what we have to then look at is, we know this fight is going to go a long time. So what we need to look at is ways we can extend the fight. So a brilliant example of ways we can extend the fight is straight up, most simple item in the game, you need to prioritize getting regen. So if you're playing against an Omni Knight, you need a Guardian Greaves, you need a mech, something like that. An urn is also a priority. Drums of Endurance are a fantastic item. I find this a very underused item. I'm not a fan of the item myself, but if Omni Knight pops his Guardian Angel, what you should be doing is getting some space between your team and his. So if you can then pop drums and back off, he's wasted his Guardian Angel. Other good items are anything that gives good mobility. For example, Yules, because of the extra movement speed, is really good. Plus, anyone on the enemy team who doesn't give the spell immunity to, you can cast the Cyclone on, and it gives you a few seconds to walk away. Force Staff is really good because of its ability to let you get some distance between you and your enemy, even when they've managed to do damage to you. The same goes with the Hurricane Pike, same principle. It's there to make space between you and your enemy, and that's what you need with an Omni Knight. You need, once he's cast his ult, you need to create some space. Other items that can be useful are the invisible items, of course. They go without saying, they can be quite good as an escape, but if you're playing against anyone decent, they'll have detection. So these are more initiation items than anything else. The Glimmer Cape is much better than in terms of saving yourself and drawing a fight out, because you can use it on anyone, meaning that if somebody gets focused, you can use it on them. Not only does it make them invisible, but it also gives them a 45% boost to their magic resistance. The 45% boost to the magic resistance means that even if the enemy team has detection, you're going to dramatically reduce the amount of damage they take, and that will draw out the fight quite significantly. Now, the magic resistance there brings me to another really good item against an Omni Knight. This isn't always a good item against an Omni Knight, it depends who's on his team, but if his team is capable of doing 400 damage to all of you, or at least most of you, then buy a pipe. Now, in most cases, the trade-off with a pipe, because it's a fairly expensive support item, it's just not worth it for the 400 damage. A lot of the time, there are better items to buy. But when we are fighting against an Omni Knight, we need to buy time. We need to buy that. If we're in a situation where we just can't back out of a fight, we need to extend that fight to the point where our cores can start doing damage to him again. And 400 spell block, in most cases you'll be looking, when you buy a pipe, you'll be looking to block 400 burst damage. But when it comes to an Omni Knight being in the game, it's not so much the burst damage that's the main issue. I mean, as long as if they've got low cooldown spells with magic, you're still going to get the benefit of this. And plus, it does give a 10% resistance aura. So again, it's going to extend the life of your team in a fight, assuming they can't get out of the fight. So this is going to extend the life of your team. Really, really handy. Now, when we look at other items we can pick, this is the trouble with an Omni Knight. It's not really obvious. A couple of the guys that do best versus an Omni Knight are Basher heroes. Any hero that tends to pick up a Basher will generally do quite well against an Omni Knight, because one of the problems with an Omni Knight, when he casts his Repel and Guardian Angel on you, you can't damage his team, but his team can damage you. Thing is, if you've got a Basher, you can still right-click him. You can still bash him. So, Basher is one of the few ways you can control an Omni Knight, or whoever Omni Knight gives his Repel to, so that you can pick a core and you can just, stun lock them with the Basher until everything wears out. Now, that's not always practical, because you may be in a situation where you can hold his one core in place, but the rest of them are still going to be doing damage to you, so it's not always practical. But again, like I say, with Omni Knight, this is the problem, that there's no hard counter in terms of items. Okay, another really good item you can pick up is a Solar Crest. Again, the evasion is going to extend a fight on anyone you put it on. The armor is going to be useful on anyone you put it on. But if you get in a situation against an Omni Knight where it's not practical for you to retreat during this 10-second duration of Guardian Angel, if somebody gets jumped, you can put the Solar Crest on them. That will keep them alive 25% longer, roughly, and hopefully that's going to draw things out. The other thing you might want to consider when you're fighting against an Omni Knight is you need to realize the fights are going to last a long time. So, for example, if I was an anti-mage and I built all damage items, I'm probably going to get blown up during the 10-second duration. However, if I build a couple of casual stat items, fairly cheap ones, even if they're not massively natural on an anti-mage, the extra bit of HP I'm going to get from those casual stat items are going to keep me alive long enough to let me do my damage after the duration has worn out. So that's another thing you should consider when you're fighting against an Omni Knight. It's probably worth getting a couple of casual stat items. Find something with a bit of strength. Let's take an example. Just a casual bracer would do it. If there's no urn on your team, which there really should be against an Omni Knight, because the extra sustain is brilliant. If nobody's got an urn, pick up an urn. Even if you wouldn't normally pick up an urn, just pick up an urn. I mean, it gives you 6 extra strength, which is 120 extra health. That might just keep you alive long enough. If you can't decide on
your middle tower is under attack.
If you can't decide on a health item to buy, might just be worth picking up a casual cloak as a core. That's not going to be that big a deal. If the enemy team has a decent amount of magic damage, just a casual cloak is going to do a lot for you. I mean, you probably find it's usually better to upgrade it anyway. But if you're just desperate to survive that little bit longer, then cloak is definitely worth just a casual pickup. See, this is what I mean. All these things I'm saying to you now, I mean, they don't feel like a really strong argument to counter an Omni Knight, and that's because they're not. There is no strong argument to counter an Omni Knight. You need to pick hero counters to people who can get in and out of a fight easily. And kind of this series, I wanted to be mostly item counters. Another one you might want to lean towards if you're on the fence over a magic wand. Get it. The extra health, again, going to keep you alive longer. Oh, this is a rough one. I mean, there is literally like piss all you can do. Any team-wide armor item is going to be good in this case. I kind of like Lotus Orb if there's a lot of targeted spells on the enemy team, but the problem with it is it's not targeted ults you've really got the problem with against an Omni Knight. It's the low cooldown spells really that are gonna really hurt you against an Omni Knight, because a hero like Crystal Maiden, for example, she has, if I just max her skills out. Now, when you're fighting against an Omni Knight, you know she's got at least 10 seconds before you can damage her. Both her spells have sub 10-second cooldowns, which means normally with a health pool you would expect Crystal Maiden to get both these off twice in a fight. But let's just take Crystal Nova as an example. You'd expect her to get Crystal Nova off at least twice in a fight. At least twice. I mean, even if she's got a bad position and she gets caught, you'd think she can cast it, wait the 9 seconds and cast it again, usually. But with an Omni Knight, she's going to get it 4 times. So instead of doing 500 damage, she's going to do 1,000 damage. And this is a big AoE. That could be to everybody. So this is the thing, guys. Plan fights to be long. Get things, buy items that will increase your team survivability and your team mobility to just pull out of fights. So Force Staffs, drums, Hurricane Pike, a Basher if you have to.
Your top tower is under attack.
Radiance isn't bad if you get it on somebody, because of the miss chance it's going to extend the life of your team in a fight. But other than that, there's not really a big way to counter Omni Knight. I mean, if you can disengage from a fight and you can keep your team healed during that fight, you've got a good chance of fighting him. If you can keep your team in a reasonably healthy position until after Guardian Angel expires, you put Omni Knight into a position where he's not that useful anymore. I mean, his purification is good, but it's not amazing. It's a really good early game skill because it's pure damage. Doing a 360 damage nuke is massive. But 30-40 minutes into a game when everyone's got 2.5, 3k health, it's not that big a deal. Degen Aura, the movement slow is the biggest issue with it. The attack slow, by the 30-40 minute mark, you'd expect Cores to have quite a decent attack speed. And if you look at this anti-mage, he hasn't even got any decent attack speed items. 242 attack speed. So the Degen Aura, in terms of attack speed, not that big a deal. In the laning phase, when you may only have 120 attack speed, that attack slow is quite a big deal. But once we get to the point where we're 30-40 minutes into a game, it's the movement slow that's really the significant part of this. And if you can position yourself out of the fight until Guardian Angel's off, it doesn't matter about the movement slow, because you can probably kill him really quickly once the Guardian Angel has worn off. So there we go, guys. I really hope you're not too disappointed. I wanted this video to be more epic, but looking at all the stuff with Omni Knight, it's like there is no way to hard counter this hero with items. No way at all. I mean, you just have to accept that and play around it. So disengage from fights when you can after Guardian Angel's popped. Get some sustainability for your team. Look through all the items. Pick up whatever will extend your team's life in a fight. And pick up a few casual extra stats to increase your HP pool. And that's pretty much it. That's your best way to deal with him. Then cross your fingers and hope that the rest of his team sucks. So there you go, guys. Best I can do, I'm afraid, with this one. If you do have any other tips against Omni Knight, other than lots of specific hero-based tips, because that's not what this series is about. If you do have any item-based things I've really missed that are really good against him, drop them in the comments. You know, really, let's help us bring that win rate down, guys. We've got to do it. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck against Omni Knight. Bye bye, guys.
Your bottom tower is under